Hello and welcome to episode 129 of Prose. This week, some freeloading fair folk take a life, and we encounter a very real mythical island. While you listen today, please consider heading over to prosepodcast.com, as it is our one-stop shop for all things prose. From there, you can follow the program on social media under @ProsePodcast across all platforms, and you can also find the small but growing online store. If you are enjoying the show, please click that 5-star review button for Prose wherever you're listening. It really helps out a lot. Reviews are also amazing, if you've got the time to toss one in. For easiest access to the show, subscribe using whatever podcast app is your favorite. Do go check out Prose on Patreon at patreon.com/prosepodcast and consider supporting the show there. Both heaps of gratitude and some Prose swag come with that deal. Again, all of this goodness is on prosepodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Let's get to the tale, shall we? This week we have They Took My Life and Vedrà. Enjoy. They Took My Life, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. I know, it sounds like some cheesy, poorly written fan fiction of Supernatural. But I swear to you, Violet, they took my life. How did it start? Well, do you remember my old Dodge Ram that I loved so much? Yeah, exactly. The one I treated like my firstborn or something, yeah. Anyway, do you also remember the couple that offered me about triple the Kelley Blue Book asking price for it? That's them. The McNultys. So yeah, they bought Rhonda. Old Rhonda the Ram. God, I still miss her. Anyway, and that was all well and good. I made out of that like a bandit. Didn't think too much of it. Guess the money helped at the time. Then, I began running into them at the grocery store. You know, the one I like off Boulder Ave? Yeah, that one. The scuzzier one. More my speed. Anyway, I didn't just see them there once or twice. Hell no. They were there every single time I was there, starting the week after they bought Rhonda. That set my spidey senses off, you know? Coincidence is one thing. Consistent coincidence after a rather pricey transaction is another. I thought maybe they were unhappy with the deal and were going to take it out of my hide or something. Or maybe they were just messing with me because I'd rather knowingly fleeced them on that price point. At any rate, my eyes were wide open and my attention to my surroundings was firing on all pistons. Wait, is that a saying? Firing on all pistons? Firing with all pistons? I don't think I know how a piston works. Okay, yeah, sorry. So, I began to see them everywhere. And I don't mean that metaphorically. The gas station? The McNultys. The pet shop with the hot co-owner that likes Shinsai and gives him free treats? The McNultys. The other nicer supermarket in that god-awful strip mall? The McNultys. My favorite pizza takeout joint? The McNultys. Hell, you know how rarely I go to bars or nightclubs. Just as rarely as I go on dates these days. Didn't matter whether it was a dive bar or a swanky cocktail place. McAllister's Pub on 5th, the Lost Souls Lounge down by the lake, or that strip joint on Montrose. The McNultys were there. Yeah, I know, right? That last one's a doozy. Honestly, it was the strip club that set off what few alarm bells that weren't already ringing. I've been in that joint only 2 times before the night I saw them there. Murphy's bachelorette party and my 30th birthday. And that second time was under duress. That night I went back to the strip joint was undertaken just to see if they would show at the place. And boom. There are the young, clean-cut McNultys sitting 2 rows back laughing, tossing back drinks and enjoying ass, tits, and pussy being thrown in their faces. Oh, yeah, Violet. That is creepy. And they do look so damn normal, right? You're on the money. I mean, dude's hair is a bit longer than is currently fashionable, and the gal is a bit weird or off or flighty. She's so sickly pale with those fairy tale gold, not blonde, but gold ringlets for hair. She looks like how Tolkien and D&D manuals write elves, you know? They both act like that too, like they're from another era or another place, like they are acting in some period piece or soft fantasy. But yeah, those nerddom thoughts are what really drove this home, on top of all the rest of these coincidences. I've got, 3 months still left in my place before I move? And just about that long at my current gig as well. Well, guess who the interested party the realtor showed around the other day was? Yep. I'm not shitting you, darling. The McNultys. Guess who's getting hired on in HR for me to train up before I move closer to home? Little elven Miss McNulty. Oh no, they are nice enough. Sure. In fact, they are too nice. It's like Stepford meets Rivendell. But you're right, Vi. Their interests, their decorating, the way they fawn all over one another, the way they are principled but not so uptight as to go and let loose at a strip club. I can keep going on, but you're on the nose here. This sounds like Brit and me, right? Just like our relationship, exactly. Well, I dug around some. It turns out that they turned up in town about the time Brit started to have a wandering eye. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but just hear me out. I've done some research on the changelings. Yeah, those changelings. Folklore says that they don't always take someone's life from them by shifting into their form and taking over. No. Some of them leech one's life away. They come in and emulate. They obfuscate. They try to be that person or those people. All I know is that the more I read about where and how those creatures show up throughout history, the more eerie it becomes. The more familiar it becomes. I'll send you a picture here in just a second. They sent it to me the other day after they looked at the house. They're standing there on Brit and my front porch, waving at the camera, beaming. So damn full of light and love and happiness. They exude joy, Violet. They look like how we looked before, but before whatever darkness laid down on us and came there to our home. They're just missing Shinsai, to be honest. And I've sent him along with my sister to stay with her and my mom until I'm done with this place. Truthfully, I think they'd take him from me somehow too. They've stepped into my shoes and are walking around in them comfortably. I want to hate them, but I find that I just envy them most days. All this hypothesizing is my oversized imagination speculating to hell and back. At the end of the day, they took my life. changelings or not, forcefully or not. But even if they just walked into the shell of what it was and made a home of it, like some hermit crab, they still took my life for themselves. And I'm left to wander naked and alone, in hopes of finding somewheres and someones that might bring me back to life again. Thanks for the talk, Vi. Yeah. No, I'm fine. We'll talk later. I hope. Thank you for listening to They Took My Life, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. Next up this week, stick around and let's see myths come to life on a very real, magical island. Vedrà, an original short story by Jared I. McGee.
The sirens are still there, you know, writhing around on the coasts of Vedrà, just as they were when Odysseus slipped by them, tormented by their songs as men urged their ship onward to Ithaca. The wax kept the men from the torment Odysseus experienced. Sweet, lascivious torment. How the famed general and king wanted those beings. Odysseus knew in his listening that Plato was wrong. These sirens were celestial, generative, and the purificatory at once. The ruling gods put them there on Vedrà for that specific trifold purpose. Odysseus became Nemo once more. His soul sang. His spirit grew. His essence was burned clean in a moment of burning catharsis. Even after he reached Ithaca those years later, he would be kept awake at night by the thoughts of what might have been had he been able to loose himself and embrace those creatures. They were meant to be emblematic of disaster and failure, of death brought on by failure to resist temptation. But to him, in his memories all those years later, they were regret embodied. What-ifs that would have been so sweet. Thetis is rumored to have been there too. A nymph among her lessers. A goddess retold after being unseated by newer, flashier gods to come to the Aegean coastlines. She had shown her face and played several hands in that conflict that saw Odysseus sailing by Vedrà, tied to the mast of his ship while the men at his disposal broke their backs to save him from leaping into the churning sea, to meet a desire he did not fully understand. Thetis walked with Zeus and his ilk, She comforted her dear Achilles in the midst of the great war. But after it was all said and done, she returned home to the craggy perimeter of Vedrà. Older still, and fallen from an even greater place of worship, was Tanit, who once strode Vedrà with her lover and co-ruler Baal Hamon, taking in the seascapes and the beauty of their realm. Both gods were tempestuous, but they were always quick to reward the faithful for their proper veneration or sacrifice. In the time before Zeus threw down other gods in the region, Vedrà was littered with the bleached bones of goats and bulls and the occasional child, the ultimate sacrifice to the mother goddess in times of desperation and war, famine and drought. Tanit would protect the souls of those little ones that paid the ultimate prices, ensuring they would play and dance in the afterlife, their little footsteps calling forth the vibrant sea fennel where otherwise there was nothing but the barren rock and maybe a little coastal scrub. When the moon would wax to its fullest, the women of the colonies would come out and dance wildly in the nude, burying themselves in all ways to the mother goddess, pleasuring one another and rising to the heights of ecstasy, calling out her name in hopes that their orgiastic worship would encourage her to bestow upon them greater fertility. But that was the time before. From her dim place beyond the veil, Tanit could only barely make out Vedrà and those usurpers that clung to her coasts. Much later, one of the sons of the sirens of Vedrà, the giant Escalepsi, was tricked to his doom by two mortal men, blinded by the very sea urchins that helped sustain him in his solitude there among his kin. The sirens wailed at the giant's blinding. Without his sight, they tried to nurse him back to health, but the giant crawled back to his cave and wasted away in the end. The mortal world once again laying low, that of the divine and the mystical. Tanit was long gone by that point, as was Thetis. But the sirens. The sirens are still there, you know, writhing around the coasts of Vedrà, just as they were when Odysseus slipped by them, tormented by their songs as his men urged their ship onward to Ithaca. The engines of the newer ships seem to drown out their harmonies, but there are those that come out and listen, seeking them, even in this late hour of the world. For those listening, the songs make the rock samphire's blooms shine more brightly. They bring on visceral memories of times that came before, times that are not something to be put down in words, for to put them into words would be to lose them altogether. These were times meant to be given voice and passed on from mouth to ear into eternity. Only the women and the men of the world stopped speaking, barely ever singing anymore. But yes, the sirens are still there. They're on the coasts of Vedrà.
Thank you for listening to Vedrà, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. All sounds you have heard throughout both short stories today come from YouTube's free audio library and are being used under CC 01.0 public domain dedication licenses. Well, that does it for Prose this week. I hope you enjoyed the tales. There's nothing like a little magic in the real world, right? Please do rejoin us again for our next episode in 2 weeks' time. And always refresh those feeds for any potential surprises that'll come popping up. Until then, love those around you, tell them that you do, and embrace this life as it is always stranger than fiction. Thank you so much for listening.